Before the sun broke over Lagos, before the city's hum grew louder with the sounds of honking cars and busy feet, Ruth was already on the move. The air was cool, but the weight of the day already pressed on her. The scent of burning refuse and decay wrapped around her like a second skin as she sifted through piles of discarded dreams, broken promises, and the forgotten remnants of others' lives. Ruth, a small, thin widow in her early 40s, moved with an unyielding purpose. Her husband's death had left her with only grief and an empty house, a place where memories clung like dust. There was no one left but her and the tiny life she had saved. The city of Lagos had no space for someone like her, but Ruth had long learned to exist without being seen. That is, until today. A shrill cry pierced the air, breaking through the weight of the morning. Ruth paused. Her heartbeat quickened. She turned, her breath hitching as she saw a small bundle of cloth. A baby, abandoned like trash at the edge of the dumpsite. A child, fragile and small, abandoned by the world. Without a moment's hesitation, Ruth rushed toward the child, her hands trembling as she scooped him into her arms. His skin was cold, his tiny form fragile, but there was life. She could feel his heartbeat against her chest as she whispered, "I will keep you safe, even if it means I die trying." This moment, in the midst of decay, became Ruth's turning point, her promise to the baby and herself. Before now, Ruth's life had been a quiet series of hardships. Her husband's sudden death had left her with no savings, no family to turn to, and no prospects. The house that had once been filled with warmth now felt like a hollow shell. The roof leaked during every storm, and the walls groaned under the weight of her solitude. Ruth had nothing, save for her strength, which she clung to every day. Her days were spent finding food for herself and Michael. Their meals were sparse, sometimes just a slice of bread, sometimes a cup of water. But Ruth loved Michael fiercely, and she did what she could to make his world feel safe. There were moments when she would catch him smiling, his wide eyes full of trust, and for a fleeting second, the weight of her struggles seemed bearable. But the loneliness was constant. She had no one to rely on but herself. At night, she would lay next to Michael, holding him close, as if his warmth was the only thing keeping the cold at bay. Her small acts of courage, the way she mended his clothes, fed him scraps, became the threads that held her life together. Michael, despite his frail beginnings, began to thrive under Ruth's care, and in those small, tender moments, Ruth found meaning in her sacrifice. It was at church, under the cracked stained-glass window, that Ruth first noticed Jonathan. He was young, confident, with a quiet strength that seemed to calm the chaos of the world around him. Jonathan was a doctor, and though he didn't say much, there was something in his demeanor that made Ruth feel seen, something that had been absent in her life for so long. One Sunday after the service, Ruth lingered to collect the hymn books, and Jonathan approached her. His voice was soft, gentle, almost as if he understood the weight she carried. "How's the little one?" he asked, his eyes warm with concern. Ruth hesitated, then smiled, though the ache of her past still lingered in her eyes. "He's good, strong." They exchanged a few words, but it felt like more. In that brief interaction, Ruth felt something stir within her, something she hadn't felt in years. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe in the possibility of kindness, of connection. Afterward, Ruth went home, Michael in her arms, and thought of Jonathan. She had been so afraid of trusting again, but something about him, his sincerity, made her wonder if it was possible. Over the next few weeks, Jonathan became a more constant presence in Ruth's life. They met after church, exchanged small gifts, shared quiet conversations. Jonathan took an interest in Michael's well-being, offering help with medical costs and occasionally bringing over food. His kindness was steady, and Ruth began to believe that she could open her heart again. But Mrs. Okoro, Ruth's elderly neighbor, watched them closely. One day, as Ruth prepared to meet Jonathan, Mrs. Okoro pulled her aside. "Be careful, my child," she warned, her voice low but firm. "Gold that shines too bright can burn your hand." Ruth nodded but didn't respond. She wanted to believe in Jonathan. She wanted to trust that kindness could be real. But deep down, there was a fear that she might be falling for something that would break her again. The betrayal came swiftly. Ruth had been meeting Jonathan regularly, and their bond had deepened. She began to dream again, to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, there could be a future for her and Michael outside of survival. One evening, Ruth arrived at Jonathan's clinic to thank him for his help with Michael's latest medical bills. As she entered the room, she overheard Jonathan speaking to a colleague. "She's a widow. It's not like she has anything else. I can't keep doing this for her. She's just another case to fix." Ruth's heart shattered. Her hands trembled as she clutched the doorframe, her vision blurring. The dream she had allowed herself to believe in, her belief in Jonathan's kindness, crumbled in that moment. She wasn't special to him. She was just another problem to be solved, another charity case. Without a word, Ruth turned and left, the echo of his betrayal ringing in her ears. She walked into the night, her soul shattering with the weight of everything she had just heard. Ruth's heartbreak was deep, but it didn't defeat her. After the betrayal, something shifted in her. She couldn't control Jonathan, but she could control her own fate. Ruth began to make plans, quiet, calculated plans to rebuild her life. She worked with a legal aid group to reclaim her late husband's property, and with Michael by her side, she started organizing community events to help others in need. Every decision Ruth made was a step toward taking back control. She no longer relied on anyone but herself. She took pride in every small victory, whether it was securing a better job, organizing a health clinic, or negotiating a fair deal for her home. Her determination became her greatest strength. Her vow was simple but resolute. She would rise, not for Jonathan, but for Michael, for herself. The showdown came in the courtroom, where Ruth faced Jonathan, now under investigation for his professional misconduct. Jonathan, who had once held all the power, now sat nervously across from her. Ruth was no longer the woman he had tried to dismiss. She stood tall, her voice unwavering as she told her story, detailing everything Jonathan had promised and taken from her. The court found in her favor. Jonathan's reputation was tarnished, and his medical license was revoked. But for Ruth, this wasn't just a victory for her. It was a victory for Michael, for the life they were building, free from betrayal and dishonesty. Ruth didn't gloat. She simply stood tall, her dignity intact. Her moral victory was quiet, but powerful. Jonathan's downfall was swift. He lost his job, his license, and his credibility. But Ruth didn't find joy in his fall. Instead, she found peace in the small, steady love that had been growing in her life. Toby, a fellow community organizer, had been there all along, quietly watching Ruth's resilience. Over time, their connection grew, not out of pity, but mutual respect. Toby didn't try to fix Ruth. He simply supported her. His kindness was gentle and unwavering. Ruth realized that love, when it was real, didn't demand anything in return. It was simply a hand to hold in the quiet moments. Ruth, Toby, and Michael sat together on a quiet evening. They shared stories, laughed, and enjoyed the peace they had fought so hard for. The pain of the past would always be there, but Ruth had learned to find strength in herself, and in the love of those who truly saw her. As Ruth looked at Toby, at Michael, she realized that her journey wasn't just about surviving. It was about healing. She had walked through the darkness and emerged stronger. And now, for the first time in years, she felt the warmth of a future that was hers to shape. In the soft glow of the evening, Ruth planted a tree in their yard, symbolizing the new life they were creating together. As the roots took hold, so did her peace. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Ruth was ready to face it, whole, strong, and unbreakable.